it's like people get mad because you see some of these guys coming on over from MMA to boxing, and the thing is if there's other eyes there, and Ngannou's a little bit of a freak power kind of a guy, so he has his pluses, I guess you would say, by coming over, but I mean, it's going to be hard, man. I just don't know if Rolly's going to be able to get through the early bombs, that are unleashed. But at the same time, I mean, fighting is fighting, man, and Rolly hits hard, So let's see if Pitbull can get underneath the shots that he's going to be throwing, and it's going to be entertaining, man. But I don't think we go past six.
Called Teddy Atlas here in Las Vegas, Nevada. You heard from the champ himself.
Good evening, everyone. I'm your host, Richard Ortiz of The Fighter's Voice, the only voice that matters. We're simply knocking out the competition. Ladies and gentlemen, it's with great privilege that I announce our guest today, one of a worldwide striking coaches who's very humble and has had several world champions, some that are pound for pound elite in this whole universe, and yet he still chills in the 559 area. He loves what he does. He's also a professional barber at that. So not only will he knock you on your ass, but he'll give you a nice fade to go with it. Ladies and gentlemen, our guest, Rudy Cruz Jr. Welcome to The Fighter's Voice, Rudy.
Thanks, man. Appreciate you having me, man.
It's been a long time, man. It's been a while before, when I had you first, when we were in studio and off of Shaw.
Yes, sir.
But you know what? There's a lot of boxing news going on as well as MMA news. And my whole thing is Rudy, how do you stay grounded? Because 1 minute you're training a world elite champion in a big pay-per-view event, and you're cutting hair, you make time, be a family man. And I know we shared before, you get all your strength from the Lord above. How do you balance out your whole day, man?
It's just whatever comes at me, man. I try to bob and weave and make it through the best way I can. If it's on my plate, I have to deal with it for the day. So, if God bless me if my feet are on the ground instead of in them, we're on a new positive day, man. So we'll deal with what comes next.
And I will say this: those elite champions in the UFC, Hall of Famers, first ballot Hall of Famers, you didn't just adopt them as champions. I mean, you guys started from the mud up. I mean, talk to us about that journey with Daniel Cormier, Habib, and I mean, you got a locker room full of great athletes.
I mean, first I got to give shout out to Big LeVar Johnson. That was the guy I started with, here in the Valley, and started making my way up when I was fortunate to get connected, through the Zinkins and a few other people to go meet and work with Daniel. Yeah, I was with him before he was in the UFC, man. He had no fights. He was actually fighting his last fight. I believe the guy's name was Daniel Starring in Strikeforce. That was his last fight, and I was working with him since. So Frank Mir, was his first one in San Jose, and from there on, it was a journey. I mean, and every time it got harder, the competitiveness with somebody like him, it's unmatched. I mean, man, the guy is something else, and that's why he is and was who he was. So, yeah, it was a journey. Yeah, it wasn't easy, man. Dude would put in a lot of work and make you work just as hard as he did to earn your paycheck. But it's well deserved, man. I enjoyed it.
How do you go from an elite fighter and as opposed to all the way down just giving private lessons to the youth or an amateur fighter? Is it the same intensity? Is it the same kind of work, or do you put your A game? I know you always have your A game on, but is it different levels? I mean, I know what the answer is, but I want the viewers, the fans, and the followers to listen and support your answer.
I got you, man. I mean, it there is complete levels to it, man, and it starts from the ground up, literally. If your footwork isn't right, the next step is not going to be right. And you have to work through all the fundamentals to make sure that you cross all the bridges the right way. And if you don't, just reverse it, come back, find what you did wrong, and adjust it, and keep going forward from there. But there is levels to it, and you have to work at every level of it. So working with an amateur, I try to give them, depending on where they're at. You don't want to overload them with too much information too early, because it can be overwhelming. So one of the things I learned from Javier Mendez, up at AKA for all these years I was working with him is the basics always work. And if you can stick to, the basics, and work from there, that's what builds and works champions, whether it's kickboxing, boxing, or mixed martial arts. And he's done all three of them. So, I was blessed to be under him for over 10 years. And you learn some things, being around those guys. And that was one of the things that he taught me about along my journey.
You work with boxers, you worked with MMA
Hmm.
fighters.
Yes,
How do you
sir.
change the footwork as compared to throwing a three punch combination or the jab? I know it has to be slightly different from an MMA fighter with his stance, kind of a wide base and balance, as opposed
Yes,
to a
sir.
fighter on his back foot on his toes. Explain that transition, and what do you look for in an athlete when you're making that transition?
The on the boxing side of it, you're really able to manipulate your balance a little more forward. Actually, a lot more forward on the lead leg. Because you as my father used to refer to it, it's kind of like you're like a lure, and you're putting yourself out there, and you're waiting for something to come so you can come back and strike off of it. So, that lead leg is something you can get away with, a la, Floyd Mayweather, the way he used to lean forward and wait for the, strike to come and counter over with a nice right hand. You wouldn't be able to get away with that in mixed martial arts. You lead on that lead leg too heavy, and somebody's gonna, recognize the weight, the the lead foot is also carried in mixed martial arts compared to boxing is completely different. If you don't adjust your base, somebody's going to see that and they're just going to start chopping at that lead leg and or look for a lead takedown, double or single leg because there's so many more variants to mixed martial arts and boxing. No disrespect to boxing because I love it. It's my pure form, but it's just a different form on both sides. I respect both sides. I'm a boxing head, but I do see where strengths and weaknesses are on both sides.
You watching an MMA fighter make the transition as Conor McGregor did in a big match with
Hmm.
Floyd Mayweather. Is it a difficult transition, or is it easier for a boxer to go inside the cage? What's your chain of thought? Does it depend on the athlete, or how fast he's able to learn and adapt? And what's your take on that?
The only guy that I've seen in recent years in the boxing world, Terrence Crawford. I've seen the guy grapple a couple times in some of his videos, and he did wrestle. He mentioned that, and you see a strong base that he has in his grappling videos, and uh, besides that, man, like it would be harder, for as we just saw with Tyson Fury and Ngannou. I believe it would be harder for the boxer to go over to the mixed martial arts side. We have seen
Hmm.
victory and success in Ray Mercer. Remember, Ray
Yes,
Mercer knocked out
Silva,
Tim Sylvia.
Tim Sylvia. Yes.
Yes, 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 yes. So there has been success on the other side of it, but that's far and few in between. If we look on the highlight on the big stage, when the UFC had James Toney with
Yes.
Randy Couture,
Just
you know,
out of
James
his
Toney
element.
was on that lead foot. Yes, as we just talked about, see how beautiful the boxing that James Toney used to display by being on that lead leg and being able to roll and have the Philly shell and come back with the beautiful
Yes.
counters. Well, he tried to do that against Randy, and Randy picked at the ankle, and the rest was history. So, it is harder. Ngannou's a little bit of a freak power kind of a guy, so he has his pluses, I guess you would say, by coming over. But I mean, it's going to be hard, man, for a guy who's never wrestled and or grappled or been kicked in the leg to go on to the other side. But if you can find somebody to connect that nice punch on the boxing side of it, it's pretty tough to deal with too.
I'm curious to see, and then I'll comment on this how Ngannou does against Anthony Joshua. If he's able to repeat his performance, because I'm going to be honest with you, Rudy, I did not see a flaw. I did not see a bad habit. I didn't see.
Mhm.
It looked like he's been boxing his whole life. The way he was rolling with the punches did not look amateurish. He was
I agree.
balanced, and my gosh, someone just to able to soak that up and adapt, and not only that, display it at the highest level in the world. What was your take on that fight, and what do you think that we're going to see Friday when he takes on Anthony Joshua?
You know, Anthony Joshua is the highest level of of heavyweight boxing that we have. Um, with that being said, man, power is power, and the way I saw Tyson Fury reacting, and I can't take anything from Ngannou. I just think Tyson Fury just didn't take this too seriously. And he went no once again, no disrespect to Ngannou. That is Tyson Fury's bad for not preparing for what's in front of you at all times. Um, I think Anthony Joshua is in this fight. He might be a little more timid than we all think. He's going to be. Once Ngannou hits hard, and it's awkward because it's not your conventional style of what you're normally used to seeing. So that's what a lot of boxers don't get is they fight. Mixed martial artists fight you a little more than boxers do. It's like the bare knuckle kind of
Yes.
thing. The science is definitely engraved in it. It's definitely there. The sweet science of boxing is in combat sports, but it's just a little bit different. When you have somebody fighting you per se more of using the sweet science. So if the boxer can adjust and use his jab and find a way to deal with the power of Ngannou, is going to be the biggest obstacle. And I don't know if Joshua is chinny, is we would say, because of what Ruiz did to him. But I mean, he's been in there with the best and taking some big shots, even from Usyk, who was catching him pretty flush. So I don't know, man. I'm gonna tune in Friday just like the rest of us, and see what goes from there. What are your thoughts?
I think that before the Andy Ruiz fight, he was on a knockout streak. He was being successful,
Mm-hmm.
and he was really asked to dig down deep. Now, did he prepare himself? Maybe he slacked off a bit, and that's not taking anything away from Andy Ruiz. On the rematch, he did exactly what he needed to do. Lost
Yes.
some weight and gave Andrew Ruiz a boxing lesson, and but in the second outing, I want to say, of his career, he's kind of reminding me. I'm gonna be honest with you, of a Frank Bruno type fighter. He's it's not as fast as he used to get away with that flickering jab, and a lot of heavyweights have caught up to him and realized that the blueprint is there. I think he still has what it takes, but to be successful as a heavyweight, you still have to engage. I think he doesn't like to get hit. Nobody likes to get hit in boxing. And James Toney didn't like to get hit, but he did something about it. He would counter you. So you refuse to
Mm-hmm.
throw punches, because every time you throw a punch, he'd slip it and counter you. And he actually does have a small head, and that does help. I'd like to see the Anthony Joshua of old, but I think he's going to have his hands full come Friday. I really do. I think Ngannou has shorter punches. I like the right hand lead to the body, which I normally don't really like it. Razor Ruddock made that mistake when he fought Lennox Lewis and got knocked out on Halloween about a decade ago. I didn't like that whole jam into the body part, because some people can get away with it and some people can't. So I really wouldn't say it's a jab to the body. It's more of a foursome punch with power that makes you think. I think we're in for a treat come Friday, and I have to lead with Ngannou. I just feel Ngannou. I just really feel that he's the missing link in the heavyweight division. Even though he's at a deep age, he takes care of his body. He watches what goes into his body, a la Bernard Hopkins. So it
Yes.
should
Yes.
be interesting.
Very true. Man. I mean, Friday. I think we're gonna see something special. Hopefully, man. We get a surprise. I hope. I've been. My heart is in Ganu, man. I'm not, because it's just his journey. Not No disrespect to Anthony or his camp, but I see that journey, and boxing does need a little extra spark, man. And sometimes this is, that little extra firework that it needs to get that extra attention over there. It's like people get mad because you see some of these guys coming on over from MMA to boxing. And the thing is if there's other eyes there, a la the way Taylor Swift and the whole Travis Kelsey last season situation worked on for the
Yeah,
NFL. It brought more viewers on, and regardless of what it is, you just want more eyes on the sport, man,
absolutely.
because if there's it's been a quote unquote dying sport for years, and I've heard that since my father was telling me when I was 5 years old and watching ESPN with Marvin Hagler and those guys, man. So, but when it had no, because no disrespect to kickboxing at the same time, but it wasn't as visually competitive or let me not say that, it wasn't as competitive in a lot of people's eyes, and it didn't carry the weight of yeah, this is going to dethrone boxing. But once mixed martial arts came along and it started establishing itself, now you have a legit competitor, and it started bringing more eyes over to both sides. And now with the over, sometimes it feels like the UFC or they do a little too much, but it's their work. They have to put their brand out there. I wish boxing would make their superstars a little more the way the UFC does. But I also at the same time understand that it's just a different entity. But back to what we were saying, there was no competition, for the sport of boxing, per se. And with the way that Dana White and everybody have worked over the years to actually bring it to the stage that it is today, it's actually, I'd rather watch a boxing match sometimes than, some mixed martial arts, because that's just my passion. So, but everybody else feels different, and hopefully when you get this spark that we're talking about, back in these big events, man, we can get some more action and more younger eyes back on the sport again to go ahead and either take the journey, whether you're going to buy a ticket to go to a local event or you're going to sign up to the local boxing gym and take a class.
I remember back in the day, I didn't even know PKA existed until I started watching on ESPN and knowing the rules that you had to have 7 kicks in there. I remember the backhands, and it just kind of faded out afterwards. It started to make a slight run
Mm-hmm.
because people wanted combat sports. There was only boxing and there was PKA. MMA, back in the day, they came out with the tournament, with Hoist Gracie, Ken Shamrock.
Mm-hmm.
But since then, now it's just evolved that it's just crazy, and especially amateur MMA.
Yeah.
Anybody that has dreams of walking into that cage, they either find out quick, keep it as a dream, or they're really made and cut out for this
Mm-hmm.
sport. And not taking anything away from the fighters, man. And I'm a big boxing fan. But these MMA guys, that they're just a different type of breed. They're a different type of animal. They're willing to they're the guys that if they went to war, they'd be in the front line and just they wouldn't even
Yes,
want to
sir.
use weapons. They'd want to use their bare hands. They're that type of beast, that type of savage.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I totally get what you're saying, man. I've been blessed to, even locally, to work with a lot of guys, and the new batch that I have coming up, they're completely different than what it was 15 years ago. You're seeing these guys, they're like ninjas, and I'm watching. I just had Christian Avalos just go out there and win the A1
Yeah, Land
combat
Shark.
title.
Shout out to Land Shark.
And Lanchard, yeah, and I've been blessed to been working with him for like the last 5 years, solid. And he's got his growth and his just the way he comes about. The development is there, and I just can't wait to see what somebody like him and his brother Alex,
Yeah.
are gonna develop into, and they're still growing, man. And it's a pleasure to work with these guys locally because you, somebody has to keep paving the way for the next generation to learn. And it's in guys like those names who are in the driver's seat right now, valley wise.
And big shout out to Big Al Gonzalez as well. I mean, another candidate from the 559, and he believes in
Yes,
himself
sir. I
and
love that guy.
still continues to move forward. Um, I wanted to ask you this. It's somewhat of a tough question, and I know
Yes.
it happens. Before we move on to this whole schedule of boxing, because I want to throw some fights out there, and I want your feedback on them. What do
Yes,
you
sir.
do, Rudy, when you're working with your fighters? Fighter A isn't really getting it, at his camp, and he comes to you and he says, "Hey, I'd like for you to train me." but yet he's still with that camp. How do you handle that? Do you send that fighter back, or do you say, let me talk to your trainer first, or work things out? And how do you handle that? Because I know people have just probably been knocking on your door and you got a long line because of who you worked with and how successful you've been with fighters. How do you send a fighter back, or what's that conversation like?
I've been blessed to been working. I know a lot of the coaches here around the Central Valley area, and even down south and up north also. So if a fighter comes to me and he wants to work with me, the first thing I'm gonna do is make sure that it's okay with the head coach. And I don't want to disrespect anybody or step on any feet or cross a boundary of just a friendship first and foremost with the coaches that I have everywhere, and just with also with the people that I'm
Right.
working with. Because I it's the people who I'm working with first. If I can bring somebody else in, if I have the time, so forth and so forth, as you were saying. But I would have to go to the head coach first. I've been in these situations for a fight, like fight situations, and if I know I'm gonna fight a friend, or he's at a different camp and I personally know him, I let them know, hey, listen, this is what's going on. This is where it's at. It's all business, right? Okay, boom, we're good. We're good. Good from there. But I believe it's just common courtesy and respect to let the other coach know, and keep it respectful.
I'm going to move on from MMA and I'm going to go to boxing. But before I go out there, I really don't throw too many jabs, but I got to throw one. Okay. I'm just going to throw one and I'm going to move on.
Okay.
Rudy, in this area, the 559 area, I've been twice not given a credential in our own backyard for the MMA. And I did say I wanted to do more MMA than boxing. I don't understand how I don't get a credential, but yet I got a credential for Tyson Fury, Deontay Wilder. Uh, you know, I mean, what are you going to say? Uh, uh, Crawford and Showtime Porter, Regis
Yes, sir.
Prograis, Devin Haney, Teofimo Lopez, Ortiz, and I just don't understand it, man. So I'll move on from that, but I'm not going to give up because I do want to support our valley, our athletes, and not only just have them on the show, but show up and get some post fight interviews with them, and put together a reel.
Yes,
But
sir.
I don't know, man. Maybe I don't know. We'll see what happens, and I'll keep the faith. But it's one of those things that makes you go like, wow, man, I just don't understand it. Maybe I'm not filling it out right, or maybe it went straight to junk mail
I
or something.
mean,
I don't know.
hopefully, man, whatever went off track, we can get back on. If I can be a part of it, man, to bring you back on board and just have your presence available, man, because it's combat sports and that's something you've been around for a long time, and we always
Oh
know what
yes,
this is,
yes,
man. So
absolutely.
yeah, let's just keep on moving forward and just if I can be a part of bringing you on to the credential side of it, man, I'd be more than honored to help. So let's see what we
I
can work on that.
appreciate it, man, and yeah, we'll sit down at the table.
No problem.
Yes,
Yes, sir.
listen. What's in the news is Ryan Garcia taking on Devin Haney, which we're going to talk about the matchup. But lately, the news had just been on Ryan Garcia on his mental health, on his before it was physical health because of the drainage on his big fight with Devin Haney. But he accepted it, but he made a move forward, and since then the
Hmm.
matchups have started to begin. But people are starting to worry about him, man. I mean, is it antics? Is it serious? Is it, something that we saw in Julio Cesar Chavez Sr.? Is it something that we saw, in some other fighters, Tony Ayala Jr. back in the day, Mi Viva Loca, I mean, the other fighter, it
Yeah, yeah,
exists. Is,
yeah.
is that from
Johnny Tapia.
pressure?
Yeah.
Is that not being able to handle the success? You've been around fighters. You've been around them when they have meltdowns. The inside the cage in the ring, that's easy for them, but it's life
Hmm.
lessons that where they have their biggest challenges. Let us know what you think about Ryan Garcia, and also how you were able to be that ear and in that advisor when those fighters came to you with those concerns.
Man, first off, Ryan, in this day and age with what we have going on with the social media and stuff and the trolling, that goes on, I really don't know if the little video that he released the other day, either way, it just doesn't look mature. But I do know this: if 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 it was completely real, if it really had substance to it, I think we would hear of it on a bigger platform from the WBA, WBC, IBF, the governing bodies involved with the sport, and that hasn't been released. From what my ears and what I've been seeing, the promoters, they don't want to jeopardize, the event and everything they put into it so far. So I I don't know. I believe the fight would have been called off already if these things that we're hearing, and if he's really smoking marijuana. We all know the not USADA, but the WADA is going to get involved, and I think it's trickery and foolery. So I hope it's not. I hope it is, because I don't want to see these
No.
young kids go through what they're going through. But I, I think it's a little. I think it's a little for social media purposes and hype for the fight. But if they would have froze his account and did everything that he said they did and took his money, and um, I think we would have heard from it on a different level, like we were saying, from the governing
Yes.
bodies. The mental stability, going. It's so close to the date. I don't know if they would actually let him compete if this was real. So hopefully it's not. Hopefully it's selling. So we'll see.
I think we'd also heard from a representative from Golden Boy, Oscar De La Hoya himself, and from
Mm-hmm.
the Garcia camp. I hope it's to bring a distraction, but Devin Haney hasn't stopped training. I tried calling his dad twice to try to get a
Mm-mm.
statement. He hasn't answered, which means he's in training. When he's in training, he don't answer the phone, and he'll say, "Hey, Richard, call me at this time," and he's still training. So I respect that, and I'm going to respect the time that he needs to train. I definitely don't want to be that distraction, but I just wanted to see. I wanted your take because I had mine and I had my suspicions, but at the same time, I'd rather know that he's okay and it's one of his antics. It's
Yes, sir.
it's it's a crazy antic,
Yeah, one
but
hundred percent.
I just want to know that he's okay and he's because
Yeah,
it's bigger than boxing at times when it comes to somebody's mental health. Not sometimes, all the
yeah,
time.
100%. I agree 100%. And all the drug accusations and everything back and forth. I just once again, I think it's for hype. With the testing that's going on. I believe that would have been checked and we would have heard about it, and you know, I'm pretty sure they've been drug
Yes,
tested
yes,
since. So,
especially after that.
so yeah, yeah.
Here's another matchup that's I don't want it to slide underneath the radar. I speak to his manager, Sean Gibbons, who's the manager of Cruz, Pitbull Cruz. He's taking on Rolly. What do you think about the matchup? And these guys both bring hammers inside of the ring. Can either one win by KO over the other one, or do you see it going the distance? Isaac Cruz, it is.
um, yeah. I don't think that one's going the distance, man. They both come in swinging hard early, and the way Pitbull's style is, he's sheltered, he's low, he's tucked in. And Rolly, when he swings, his chin's in the air more. Not taking anything from him because he's tough. He's a tough character. Um, I just don't know if Rolly's going to be able to get through the early bombs, that are unleashed. But at the same time, I mean, fighting is fighting, man, and Rolly hits hard. So let's see if Pitbull can get underneath the shots that he's going to be throwing, and it's going to be entertaining, man. But I don't think we go past six.
Okay, I can see that happening. Rolly kind of reminds me once he lets his hands go and he doesn't move his head too much. Remember back in the day, Iran Barkley, the Blade, he would just let his hands go and his chin would just stay there. But he always had Tommy's number, Tommy Hearns.
He did. He did. He did. He didn't have Roberto
Oh
Duran's
no,
number
no,
though.
no, he didn't. Or James Tony.
That was or James Tony. Oh my goodness, man. Yeah, no, I do. I'm a connoisseur, man. I love old fights, and every time my father comes over, I sit down and I put on older fights, and I'm an old Holyfield fan. That's probably one of my generational favorite boxers. I have conversations with my father, and I tell him I think in doesn't matter what era, whether it's 30s, 40s, or current. I think Holyfield. I don't know about current because we got some big guys, but I think Holyfield would have fared well. I mean, I got a mad dream matchups, him, Frazier, and those guys, and I think he would have matched up really well, man. Exciting fighter. So I'm an old school boxing head, and when I'm with my father, we sit down and we watch old fights on YouTube, and we reminisce a lot.
Holyfield style, man. I mean, he'd get hit and he wouldn't wait for the end of the bout to try to get you later. He'd get hit and his game plan's out the book. He's going to hit you back right now, today, this moment, because you just hit me, so I'm going to hit you right back. And then he'll go back to the game plan, but he's going to let you know he's not backing up. A lot stronger than his size in his weight. Very, very strong,
Yeah.
very athletic, very competitive. One of my favorite fighters as well. Great counterpuncher. Had Mike Tyson's number, and
Mm-hmm.
the rest is history. Holyfield did a lot for moving up to the heavyweight division from the cruiserweight with the Dwight
Yeah.
Muhammad Qawi's, and at the time at first it was Dwight Braxton, and then Dwight Muhammad Qawi. Dwight Braxton. He dethroned Matthew Saad Muhammad, but then he lost to Michael Spinks. But then he won the cruiserweight bout right at light heavyweight, won the cruiserweight bout, and then
Heavyweight with
Holyfield beat him, and
Michael
they ran it back
Douglas.
twice. Correct?
Yes, they did. Holyfield, man, that something about him, man. When his mouthpiece came on
Yeah.
out, halfway, you're in trouble, man. He was getting ready to bang. It was very entertaining over the years. Very
Yeah,
entertaining.
he did, and he's definitely fun to watch. I like his walkout music. I like his songs, and I like what he stands for. I still like what he stands for. He was great for boxing, and
Yes, sir.
came in always in tip top shape, man. Just like Kenny Norton, man. These guys could have got on a platform for bodybuilding if they wanted to.
True. For Ken, man, Kenny, you know what? Old fights like Ken Norton and Foreman.
Oh
Oh
yeah.
my God, man! Or me and my father were watching Ernie Shavers,
Oh
man,
my
the other
gosh,
day,
that
and
guy
oh
popped.
my
His hands
goodness,
were
yeah.
huge.
Oh, oh my goodness, Ernie Shavers was a problem. People forget, man. Those guys used to crack back in those days. It was something different, man. We don't see as much as that side of it as we used to, but being able to sit back and know the history of it, man, and be able to show my son
Jimmy
and
Young, you had all those
show
great
some of
fighters
my,
back then.
yeah, man, it was completely different, But I guess that's us getting old at the same time, man. Because I remember my grandfather saying that, watching fighters in the '80s and '90s. So yeah, you never know.
What's your favorite fight to go to? Like you're kicking back here, your feet are up, and you're going to go to the
Hmm.
vault. What fight can you just watch over and over again?
Oh my goodness. Oh, Burt Cooper versus Evander Holyfield.
Oh yes, when Evander was holding onto that rope at Atlanta, they fought at Holyfield's hometown.
He got dropped three. I mean, Holyfield went down ugly. I think he dropped Cooper 3, 4 times, and that was just one of those violent. Oh, you know what, man? Let me take that back. One of the most violent fights in the last 20 years that I've seen is Provodnikov versus Bradley.
Oh yes, yes, they could have stopped that and nobody complained.
No, that was, I mean, to the day, man. In the last 20 years, that was probably one of the more
It
violent
was a
fights that
throwback.
yes. Oh my goodness. He froze Tim Bradley like four or
Yes, he
five
did.
times in that fight, and even Bradley admits to the day, he was never the same after that fight.
I agree
So,
with you.
man,
One man was out on his feet, concussed, and one guy had two black eyes, and they just kept going to the bell rang. He knocked actually. I thought he knocked Bradley out and back in during the same flurry. I mean, and that's possible. Marvin Hagler
he
used to do
did.
that back in the day.
Yeah, yeah, Marvin Hagler did. My goodness, man. I mean, that was. But you know what people forget about them? Remember the trilogy of Vasquez and oh my goodness, of Vasquez and uh,
Yes,
Marquez.
yes.
They fought 3 times.
That was that.
Do you remember? Do
That was a
you,
great trilogy, man. Marquez. Um, I liked him up until he started making the comments about about Canelo. I really did, and I thought I would have loved to see him pina cup his last fight with Manny Pacquiao. I'm just saying, Rudy, you reached puberty one
oh,
time in your
I,
life, and for him to come in
I
on that
agree.
fourth fight just bigger, shredded, and just I'm like, my gosh! I mean, he looks 25 years old and just huge for that fight.
I
So
agree.
that was just my take.
I
Not
agree.
taking anything away, but That's just makes you kind of go like, wow, okay.
I agree, man. I agree. As you know, we've dealt with our side of the steroid kind of thing, dealing with fighters on a
Yeah.
high level. So something I'm not the biggest fan of in any sport, but especially in combat, because it's you can
Yeah,
die in
yes,
this
yes,
sport.
you can.
Yeah, so something I don't want to see. So let's keep it clean,
Exactly.
guys. Keep it clean.
Here's my take. You are one of the most underrated coaches in the world. I think if you slide over to the boxing, more of the high level fighters, bro, we're talking about possibly trainer of the year, Hall of Fame trainer. That's one of the questions I wanted to ask you. And why not let it stop with this guy? If this guy calls you tomorrow and says, you know what? I need a striking coach. Help me with the rest of my career. If it, in fact, a career, and would you take on the task? Would you train Jake Paul?
Oh man, I'll be honest with you. I don't think so. I have a balance of my family, and the financial end of it is rewarding in its own way. But what you lose at the core of your family, if that is going to jeopardize my balance, I would never. The dollar amount doesn't, equivalate to the balance that me and my family have, and I'd much rather keep it that than anything else. To be honest with you, I've went on a great journey. Before I haven't I have a son named Richie. He's I don't share this often. He's older. He's 29 years old. He has autism, and it was during us growing up. It was financially hard. It was adjustment to trying to learn how to be a father to somebody with special needs, and I just wanted to make sure that everything was steady. When we got it steady financially, we're doing well. Then I get my opportunity to go train the Daniels, Daniel Cormier's, the Khabibs, the Cain Velasquez, the Lukes. Been a part of what, the last, uh, the last dynasty of AKA. I was blessed to be a part of that. And then I had my twins. I had my twins in 2015. I was still training Daniel and these guys. I would fly them out to every event, whether it was in New York or whether it was in uh, Florida, whether it was in Las Vegas. We were always on the go, and that's the important thing for me, man. So my children are a little older now, and now I just want to I want to train them in life, and make sure that they're balanced and that they have the things that I didn't have. So, I'm only allowed to be a father to these children this one time, so that's what I'm trying to do to make it right. So I love the sport of it, and I'll never truly leave it, but I got to get my family first.
You know what? That tops everything. That says enough. That's honorable of you. That's respectable of you. And it goes to say once again, and I've said it before. Money is not everything. It doesn't accumulate. Money can go and come, but time and possession of the time that you have and the quality of time. It's just yeah. It's second to none. And I agree with you, and I respect that. Listen, man,
Thank you.
where do we follow you? How do we stay in contact with you? And what gym are you training your athletes at?
First and foremost, you can find me on Instagram at SlickBoxer, SLIKBXR. Same thing for TikTok, SLIK underscore BXBOXER. I train currently at Dethrone Base Camp. I train with Mike Moreno and a bunch of the guys,
Shout out to
underneath
Mike
us, and
Moreno.
we have a great team over there. Shout out to Mike Moreno. Um, and it's a blessing. I love giving back to the community. I always told everybody when I was done with my journey doing what I was doing, I would come back here and give back to what gave to me. I'm lucky, man. I see like guys like Mark Castro, and
Yes.
I'm super proud of him, man. He's got a fight coming up, and I see him. We had great conversations. He was at our gym for a long time, and it was great to have him. And he's a good, humble. I've known him. I've known his
Yeah,
father
Tony.
since ringside was, Tony. I've known his father since ringside, man, back in, 89, 91, 92, man, and that's where I grew my craft over the years. So we've been around this thing for a long time, man, and if God allows me to go ahead and have some knowledge to give, one day I'm gonna stand in front of him and he's gonna ask me, "Hey, what'd you do with what I gave you?"
Exactly.
And if I didn't, put out what he gave me because it's a gift, I don't want the good Lord being upset with me. I want a good position when I'm up there. So.
It truly is. Well, I had spoke to you a while back, and I'm going to say, Rudy, be careful what you ask for. I want to bring you back Tuesday. I want to do a recap with Anthony Joshua and Ngannou. If you're available,
Okay.
let's run it right back. Let's do a recap, and let's talk some more boxing.
Oh, let's get in there, man. Hey, real quick, man, before we get on out of here, though, man. What do you think about Ennis Boots? What do you think about him? What do you think about him and Crawford, man? That matchup.
I think that's a great matchup. I think he's going to take Crawford and make Crawford ask himself, hey, now I am tested, truly tested, where I got to dig down deep. Because I've always liked that Benavidez fight, but Benavidez was fighting on one foot that night. And Crawford was getting hit with some body shots, and Benavidez was returning his own until, he just started to wear down. Boots is one of the fighters that nobody wants to get in the ring with because there's too much risk. As a promoter, I would not put my fighter in there unless it was for all the marbles and we're both getting paid in one of those types of fights. I think he's the goods. I think he's the real deal. And, if Crawford can dispose of him, I mean, what more can you say? I got to put him with the greats of the Sugar Ray Robinsons and some of the Sugar Ray Leonards and the Tommy Hearns and the Furious Four and, the Four Kings, rather. I mean, you can't rob him from anything. But I'd like to see – that's a great matchup. Yeah. Great matchup right there.
That's a great matchup, man. I mean, those are the things that we wait for as fighters, but – it's just a shame that they don't come together as big companies and make it happen more often. But it is what it is. That's the sport of boxing, and we got to deal with the politics in between.
Exactly. I agree with it, man. Less is more. Iron sharpens iron, bro. It's always a pleasure for you to come on the show. I got to send you some messages because I need some fighters. I need a 155-pound amateur MMA fighter, and I need a 135, possibly 140 amateur boxer to compete Sunday in Fresno, California on, when it's like police against police, that type of stuff. So we'll talk more.
Isn't Evan Solario's,
yes, he is. Evan Solario, I believe, is the co-main event. And the guy that I'm looking for will be in the main event. So if that fight scratches, then I believe Evan will be the main event. But we're trying to get these guys matched up. I mean, these guys, bro, they're exciting. They let their hands go. And I will say this:
they do.
Evan's a monster. If he wasn't a police officer or MMA, Evan can handle himself.
My student for the first 7-8 years of his career.
I can see it.
And he went off with Coach B, Brian, man, who's a great friend of mine also. So Batman, man's a great friend of mine. So I've known Brian, man, for 30 years through boxing. He used to go to ringside back in the day with us. So it's a great to see these guys flourishing, man, over the years and be a part of their journey as well. Also,
exactly. I agree with you, man. Listen, man, I got to bring you back. We got to do a recap. So make some time. Give me 30 minutes. Give me 45. Whatever you can. I want to do a recap. I remember we spoke, and I said, when the time is right, and now the time is right, brother.
Time is right, baby. I mean, whenever you need me back, man, I'm having fun. Let's do it again. I enjoy the boxing.
Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank our guest, Rudy Cruz Jr. And if you have not subscribed to our channel, please do at www.com, youtube.com/thefightersvoice. Remember, every fighter has a voice, and so do you. As always, it's a wrap. Thumbs up for Richie.
Thumbs up for Richie.
Okay, fight fans, it's not goodbye, but until next week. Remember, it's always voiceography at its finest. So on behalf of Richard Ortiz, the special guests, and all the crew, saying hasta luego, babies. And always, thanks for listening.